I asked your favorite OG Hearthstone streamers,
What's your favorite Hearthstone deck of all time?
What is your favorite Hearthstone deck of all time?
After each answer, we'll take a trip down memory lane, discussing the deck, and if we can, show clips of the OGs playing their favorite decks back in the day. We've got answers from Crip, Disguised Toast, even Forsen, and more, so stay tuned till the end. Let's start with RDU. RDU started competing in Hearthstone esports back in 2014 and competed for roughly 7 years, with his biggest prize pool win coming in the 2015 Archon Team League Championships. However, he is best known for being a streamer and YouTuber, and successfully does it still to this day. Let's see what he says is his favorite deck of all time.
Jordan is asking, what's your favorite Hearthstone deck of all time? Patron Warrior. Playing Patron Warrior in Constructed was as much fun as playing Battlegrounds.
RDU's favorite deck, Patron Warrior, is a warrior combo deck revolving around the use of Grim Patron, hence the name, as well as Warsong Commander and Frothing Berserker. The strategy involved the warrior mechanic, or at least the idea of it, the enrage keyword, dealing damage to your own minions for your own gain. Whilst none of the cards in this deck actually have the keyword, there is still benefit to be had. The lethal side of the combo involved using Grim Patron with Warsong Commander, which gives the first Grim Patron and all those summoned during the turn via damage spells or minion trades charge immediately. You can then use all your Grim Patrons which have charge to clear enemy minions or hit the enemy's face. And with the combination of Frothing Berserker, the damage dealt to your patrons and enemy minions builds the attack of your Frothing Berserker, which also just so happened to have gotten charge from Warsong Commander when it was played. This led to incredibly high damage combos being possible in a class with good survivability and draw tools. Due to the high power level of these lethal combos and the other large range of synergies involving, say, just using Armorsmith for armor or Grim Patron for controlling the board, and so many other synergies that we don't have time to cover, such as drawing cards with Acolyte of Pain. Due to all of this, Blizzard had to step in and nerf the deck. To do so, they nerfed Warsong Commander, properly mutilating it into a meme for many years. This deck is a phenomenal pick for a favorite deck. Not only were the combos fun due to all the cards you got to string together, but Patron Warrior was one of the most strategically difficult decks to play in Hearthstone history. A true gem we were all blessed with. Up next, one of Hearthstone's biggest OG creators, Kripparrian. For me, he was someone who I used to watch every day when I'd come home from night shift at 3 a.m. and just wanted to relax. There was always a new video that provided a consistent comfort. I hope to one day make something a fraction as enjoyable for someone else. If you think I've succeeded and you haven't yet, I do give you permission to subscribe. Kripparrian is best known for streaming various Blizzard games, primarily Hearthstone. With all that said, his favorite deck is Fatigue Druid. No clip here, he didn't take my money, I just asked him on Twitter and he responded. Very kind of him. Fatigue Druid in its earliest form came over 11 years ago with the release of the Goblins vs. Gnomes expansion. Shown here is footage from those earliest days, where you were largely a control deck and you pretended that the drawbacks of giving opponents cards using Naturalize, Cold Light Oracle, and Grove Tender was actually fine, as you'd potentially be able to destroy some cards by forcing them to overdraw. But in reality, the deck was quite weak at a time where Hearthstone was quite weak, so even if you made it into the late game, you were merely pretending to actually compete in most of your games. But that didn't matter to Crip, because he enjoyed what he was playing, and as more cards came out, about a year and a half later, Crip revisited Fatigue Druid, now being able to use key tools such as Reno Jackson, Justicar Trueheart, and Bran Bronzebeard. The deck was still weak, but it was more refined and had access to some stronger cards. On top of these new cards, there was also a massive buff provided to the deck via a mechanic change to Poison Seeds, and in this deck specifically, how it now worked with Explosive Sheep. Originally, Explosive Sheep played and then Poison Seeds played after, would trigger Sheep, dealing 2 damage to the board, and then would kill everything, turning them into 2/2 seeds, effectively making the Sheep do nothing. But when it was changed, you suddenly had a 6 mana 2-card combo that could clear any board, because what would now happen is it would turn everything into a 2/2, and then the Sheep Death Rattle would proc, dealing 2 damage to all of the 2/2 seeds, clearing the board. So now, with Explosive Sheep in your deck, you will have an early AoE with it, and a mid to late game AoE with it, which is a massive power outlier for a deck back then, and would still see play today, but the mechanic change ended up being reverted. With these new card additions and this new synergy, the deck was largely the same, but it was significantly stronger. You could now more than just get away with the mill stuff. You had a strong enough deck that could kind of win regardless of the mill stuff, but obviously Crip enjoyed it, so he would play the mill stuff.
Oh, well, I guess I can mill him. I'll just go for that.
For the wild.
Probably should have gone for that.
My hand is too full.
That is a good card to mill, boys. No crazy legendaries for you.
With that said, in the not too distant future, some core cards would rotate, and the rest of Fatigue or Mildruid's story would reside in the wild format, where it would at various points be so strong it needed to be nerfed, due to an incredible amount of cards that supported the archetype being combined over the years. But that is far removed from Caparion's favorite deck of all time, so we will move on to the next Hearthstone OG. Said OG is Amaz. Amaz began as a streamer in 2013 after being recommended to do so by a friend. His timely occurrences a game against Artosis helped him get noticed, and he built a following as an entertainer from there. He also participated in the esports side of things, being Team Liquid's first Hearthstone streamer as well as a commentator for the 2015 Hearthstone World Championship, among other things throughout his time in Hearthstone. He is best known for a time period that just so happened to contain his favorite deck of all time.
Jordan, thanks for the $5. What's your favorite Hearthstone deck of all time? My OG Priest, obviously. Come on, that's obvious.
We can reasonably assume OG Priest means Classic Priest, especially given that that was his thing when he started out with Hearthstone over 12 years ago. And Classic Priest, of course, is Control Priest. The strategy, if not clear, was simple. Remove your opponent's minions early and mid-game board in the mid-game to eventually develop your own, finishing off with a Ragnaros, Holy Fire, Mind Blast, etc. The deck also contained the iconic Wild Pyromancer, Northshire Cleric, and Circle of Healing draw engine, which was a perfect mix of powerful and fun. Just make sure to not go full Northshire. The Control Priest era was a simpler time in Hearthstone. It was a deck and a time that so clearly represented the simplistic nature of chess meets poker aspect of Hearthstone. You had silly RNG with the Ragnaroses of the world, but rewarding decision making with when and how to use your different removal and tools. Much like Caparion's favorite deck, Control Priest was not a great deck in terms of performance at the time, but in a weird way, that actually helped make it more rewarding to play, because you really needed to overperform the average to see consistent positive results with it whilst trying to climb with this deck, which positioned it to be very rewarding for someone who could do that. And that challenge, of course, did not bother Amaz in the slightest, or slow him down at all, as he consistently found himself in high legend, consistently revisiting the deck and revising the deck as he went along. You could tell he was truly in love with it.
But I have to play like this.
Right
Oh
away.
god. This is the weirdest lethal I've ever seen. Wow, that should be a puzzle. That should be a puzzle. That is the weirdest lethal I've ever seen.
Up next, Forsen. According to Wikipedia, he initially gained popularity for participating in StarCraft II professional competitions. But of course, he then eventually started competing in Hearthstone, which is where he pops up in our collective story as Hearthstone enjoyers back in 2015, where Forsen was a massive Hearthstone streamer, streaming at times up to 45,000 viewers, numbers that Hearthstone will certainly never see again. What was his favorite deck? Let's find out.
What is your favorite Hearthstone deck of all time?
American Rogue. It's American Rogue!
To some, this deck's name aligns with the play pattern between Gadgets and Auctioneer of praying for a miracle, i.e. hoping you'll manage to draw the right cards to keep drawing more cards, which will eventually hopefully allow you to get your combo cards. But the name specifically comes from a very old Magic the Gathering deck called Miracle Grow, which utilized a card called Quirion Dryad, which has the text, whenever you cast a white, blue, black, or red spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Quirion Dryad. This is kind of like a Hearthstone card that says, whenever you play a card, gain +1/+1. The deck utilized cheap or even free card draw and counter spells to quickly grow the Quirion Dryad to massive stats. The deck got the name Miracle Grow from a plant fertilizer because of the speed that the Dryad grew. Naturally, you can see the similarities with Questing Adventurer, a card in original Miracle Rogue lists, which explains the name coming to be. Miracle Rogue strategy revolves around cards like Gadgets and Auctioneer, cheap spells such as Backstab, Shadow Step Preparation, and damage-dealing combos like Leroy plus Shadow Step or South Sea Deckhand plus Cold Blood. In the early game, you try to conserve as much life as possible while holding on to as many cheap spells as possible so that you can use them later with Gadgets and Auctioneer to hopefully draw as many cards as you could ever need to win the game, allowing you to finish off your opponent with one of the many ways that you have in your deck to do so. Miracle Rogue is one of the most iconic Hearthstone decks of all time, and I think for good reason, as it's basically the only classic deck that holds up in enjoyment today.
Are you ready for this, guys? Are you entertained? Oh, det fick man. This one forgot. Oh my god, I can't do that. I can't BM like that.
I'm not sure whether it says more about Hearthstone esports popularity back in the day or the inability for most viewers to watch anything other than gameplay that is better than they are capable of, but Dog is yet another OG creator in this video who competed in Hearthstone esports. He's competed since 2014, winning 100k plus prizes in both 2019 and 2021. He eventually switched to Battlegrounds, where he has still competed as recently as last year. Much like the others, he is more known as a streamer and still has a large following on Hearthstone and other strategy games. Fun fact for those who don't know, he married fellow Hearthstone OG creator Hafu in 2021.
It's my favorite Hearthstone deck of all time. Probably just Ramp Druid, regular Ramp Druid with Zombie Chow, my god. Or Q Block, or Mill Rogue, oh yeah. Give me some of that.
From that clip, we've got 3 answers, and I think reasonable logic to go with any of the choices he gave. We could choose Ramp Druid for the fact that it was his first instinct. We could choose Q-Block for it being such a big deal when he pioneered it on day 1 of that expansion. Or Milrogue for it being his choice when he had the most time to think of his answer. I think based on the excitement in his voice, it's fairly clear that Milrogue is his #1 choice, which is kind of a shame because I'd much rather talk about Q-Block, but alas, poor Warlock, this video is for you, not just for me. Milrogue is very similar to Mill Druid, Crypt's favorite deck, except much more refined, much more designed, and much more powerful. The general strategy of the deck is to use Cold Light Oracle to force your opponent to draw cards, and as well as using cards like Vanish either to fill their hand or to kill things on their board. Because if you used Cold Light or other cards to give them a full hand, then when you actually vanish their board full of minions, any cards that can't be returned to the hand are instead killed. So it turned Vanish into a big board clear that also removed the value, oftentimes entirely, from the game. On top of Cold Light and Vanish, you utilize cards like Brand, Shadow Step, Gang Up, Valera the Hollow, Zero Power, Death Shadow, and more to make more Cold Lights until you eventually make your opponent draw so many cards that they then run out of cards, and then you then make them draw so many more cards that you eventually kill them using the Fatigue mechanic. I'm assuming everyone knows what the Fatigue mechanic is, but if you don't, if your deck runs out of cards, and for any reason you go to draw a card and you can't draw one because your deck is out of cards, you instead take Fatigue damage. You start with 1 damage received, and that 1 damage goes up by 1 every time you draw another card you can't draw. So you take 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, etc. until your opponent, the Milrogue, has made you explode due to your own fatigue damage. That was the strategy and how the general gameplay of Milrogue played out. You try to live whilst making your opponent burn cards and eventually die in fatigue, or you die trying.
I'm actually pretty sure we win.
Why is it 8 fatigue?
Because he took 1, and then he takes another one next turn plus 6.
It's 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8.
Yeah. It's lethal, right?
15 plus 6 plus
I don't know, dude. Just go, dude. Just go. Just jam him. If we don't kill him, we lose. I think it's lethal. We can play the.
It doesn't matter.
If we draw the Kingsbane, we definitely have lethal. We don't. Definitely. Yeah, we have lethal. We win. I told you. Fine. Play it. Boom. Easy win. Yeah.
That was kind of cool, dude.
That was a little cool.
That was pretty cool.
No, we
Wow!
got really lucky that
You're
no one
so
was in the.
good!
If you ever wondered over the years why mill decks existed or kept existing, it's likely the same reason that two of the creators we've talked about already have picked a mill archetype as their favorite deck. And no, I'm not some clown who's insinuating that these creators have steered the ship in any regard, but rather I'm proposing this as evidence that these decks are undeniably very fun to play, despite many commonly despising to play against them. Burning cards has always been a polarizing mechanic in Hearthstone. It doesn't feel good to have your cards burn. Even if competitively, in terms of actually winning or losing, burning cards is actually very weak, as it can be effectively viewed as putting that card on the bottom of your deck, at least until you've actually hit fatigue. This is why a card like Gnome Feratu, despite being fun to play and a not so fun to play against card, was never actually competitively great, because burning a random card is incredibly weak. It just so happens to disproportionately feel bad to experience. Mill Rogue was at one time the embodiment of that experience, constantly forcing players to face the uncomfortable reality of having to try to draw a card, try to win a game, whilst their cards were burning up in broad daylight. Mill Rogue, a fun deck that was originally designed to use the fatigue mechanics damage to its benefit, now synonymous with Hearthstone torture. Before we continue with more OGs, I have snuck in someone who is absolutely dominating Hearthstone content creation right now, but was technically also an OG despite not being as popular at the time as the others on this list, or even as he is now. Think of him as an honorable mention. If you don't know, Shady Bunny is currently a very successful Hearthstone Battlegrounds creator, but has been around the scene for super long, having spent time creating content for Arena and Constructed. When asked what his favorite Hearthstone deck of all time was, he gave this answer.
When I played Constructed deck, what was your favorite deck? Even Lock and Melee Druid. Probably Even Lock more than Melee Druid. I only played Constructed for a very short amount. I was an Arena player for pretty much forever.
Evenlock is a deck revolving around Gen Greymane, drawing a card and taking 2 damage basically every turn for 1 mana, and using payoffs resulting from having a bigger hand and or a lower life total. This is like if a draw deck like Miracle Rogue met Handlock. You get to have a bigger hand faster than Handlock, and you run cheaper cards to empty the hand faster than Handlock, but you're still hoping primarily to play and stick big minions. Super fun deck, but let's not delay our final OG any longer. Let's move on to Disguised Toast. Disguised Toast did not get his start in esports, although he did compete a time or two. He got his start making infographics as well as on YouTube, creating Hearthstone videos. He eventually started streaming on Twitch and wore his logo of Toast as a mask to keep his identity a secret. The toast is disguised, after all. Whether he wanted to or not, he ended up revealing his face and continued streaming on camera as normal, only growing more successful from there. He eventually left Hearthstone content and joined the content group Offline TV, and even eventually got so big and successful that he signed a 2-year exclusive streaming contract with Facebook Gaming, back when he was absolutely dominating content for Among Us back during the pandemic. For those who don't know, exclusive streaming contracts usually come at a pretty penny from the platform themselves. Disguised Toast back then and now is one of the most entertaining creators and absolutely excels at making content for strategy games. But what did he say was his favorite deck of all time from his Hearthstone days?
Fellas, what's your favorite Hearthstone deck of all time? Alright, any real Hearthstone enthusiasts know the answer? Well, there is. I do have a favorite deck. It's the one I played like 500 games on. Yeah, it's OTK Quest Mage. That shit was so fun.
Ah yes, Quest Exodia Mage. The strategy for this deck is to spend the early to mid game surviving the opponent's attack, whilst ticking up your quest progress toward completion. Then for the combo, you play as many girls, aka Sorcerer's Apprentices, as you can, either generated by Simulacrum or copied on board through Molten Reflection. With your spells now costing 4 less, You play your Time Warp to earn an extra turn. In this extra turn, you can then play Archmage Antonidas, followed by any spell, and then you're set up with an infinite supply of 0-mana fireballs that you can use to blast just about everything. And after that, and only after that, your opponent's hero to death. Hearthstone Exodia in its purest form, Quest Exodia Mage is an awesome pick for favorite deck of all time, whether it be to counter control in the meta, or just for the satisfying fun that is the final turn of the games that you win.
Draw your last pathetic card so I can end this, Yugi.
My grandpa's deck has no pathetic cards, Kaiba, but it does contain the unstoppable Exodia. Impossible! I've assembled all 5 special cards, all 5 pieces of the puzzle.
Exodia! It's not possible! No one's ever been able to call him...
Exodia! Obliterate!
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments what video you want to see next.